although generally, believe it or not, I do try to translate any English, or for that matter, Aramaic term or word into, any Hebrew or Aramaic term. I try to translate it into English. It may not seem that way, and I take nothing for granted, being that this shir is geared for Bnei Noach, and I think it's fair to say that the most international Bnei Noach language is probably the English language, although there are many other Bnei Noach in the world amongst the billions of people which speak other languages, but I'm not too fluent in any other languages. This time, in this series that we're going to try to go through now, as we explained and introduced this at the end of the previous class, it may be more challenging to do that, and there may be more more books or more references that I'm not going to bother translating and explaining, such as Mishnah, Braisa, Sifra, Sifrei, etc. These are terminologies, technical references to statements made by the sages, and these are just different sources of different rabbis from the time of the Mishnah and perhaps a bit after that. All right, so we're now back in the supplements to the Sefer Torah Sheleimah of Rabbi Mendel Kasher. This is the laws of civil laws of damages and related things of Bnei Noach prior to the giving of the Torah at Mount Sinai. Ela Mishpatim b'Marah nitztavu. The beginning of the parsha of Mishpatim. So it brings down that the Jewish people were commanded these laws in a place called Marah, and that is prior to their getting to Mount Sinai. It was on the way from Egypt to Mount Sinai. Daf Beis Ois Hey. This is a supplement to what we had on all the way in the back page, beginning of this book, in this volume, page 2, and footnote 5. B'mechilta mishpatim, and I will actually probably go in the reading part a lot faster than I normally do. So again, just giving you a heads up, I'm going to probably be reading faster and translating less. And I do apologize in advance. B'mechilta mishpatim muva bifnim, perek chaf aleph through hey. Ve'ela mishpatim b'Marah, sham sam lechoiku mishpat. All right, we're quoting the verse that says, and these are the mishpatim, the laws, which were given to them in Marah, and over there is where God gave the Jewish people choik u'mishpat, 2 words which basically mean law. However they translate them into English, whatever they decide to use, statutes and laws, but basically 2 words which mean laws. Visham ois vav, and over there, in footnote 6, Biur, in the explanation, Heveisi, I brought down, says Rabbi Kasher, Mimishnas Rabbi Eliezer, from the statement of Rabbi Eliezer, a Tana. And he quotes, Hamishpatim nitnu liYisrael b'Marah koydem matan Torah. These civil laws were given to the Jewish people in Marah prior to the giving of the Torah. So they were given a bunch of laws before they actually received the law formally. Shenemar, and the proof text that we're basing this on, Sham sam lo ychayku mishpat. That over there he placed for him statute and law. And over there again making references constantly to what it said in the actual footnote itself originally. So over there, in addition to that statement by Rabbi Eliezer, there is a teaching of Rabbi Yehuda, contemporary of Rabbi Eliezer. And the teaching goes as follows. Yochol lo nishnu b'Sinai. One may think that these laws were not taught at Sinai because they were only taught in Marah, which is, again, a geographic location somewhere between Egypt and Mount Sinai that the Jewish people were traveling during those few weeks that they left Egypt, of course, on the 15th of Nisan, and they arrived at Sinai on the 1st of Sivan, which is the third Hebrew month, which really makes it to the day 6 weeks later. So, sometime in between there, well, they had a bunch of things happen. They had the splitting of the sea, and they had the war of Amalek who attacked them. But one of the things that they had was they camped in a place called Marah. And over there, they were given laws. So one may think that those laws that were given at Marah were not repeated at Sinai. Talmud loymar ve'ela mishpatim, says Rabbi Yehuda, comes along the verse and says, and these are the laws. In other words, don't think that they were not repeated at Sinai. When Mechilta Yisroi, Maseches, the Bechodesh, Perigimel. And then in the Mechilta, which is another compilation of oral law that was compiled by Tanoim, so it says as follows. Vayikach Sefer Abris, Vayikra Bozni Ha'am Chulu. He quotes a verse that says, and he took the book of the covenant, and he read it into the ears of the people. Rabbi Yosef Rabasi Oimer. So Rabbi Yosef, the son of Rabasi, says, Mitchilas Bereishis Vatkan. What actually happened was that Moses read from the beginning of Bereishis, Genesis 1:1, as we would say, up to this point, which is in the middle of the book of Exodus. Rabbi Oimer, Rabbi says, that's Rabbi Yehuda the prince, mitzvahs nitztavu adam harishain. What he says, what was said, he seems to disagree with the first opinion, and he says it's not that they were taught from the beginning of Bereshis, of Genesis, up to this point, but rather they were taught the commandments that Adam Harishain, man, first man, was commanded, and the commandments that the children, the descendants of Noach, were commanded. And the commandments that they were commanded in Egypt and in Marah. So basically it's 4. Again, let's sum it up. The commandments that Adam was given, he's the first person that God ever spoke to, because he's the first person that was created and was ever on the face of the earth right after creation. So Adam was given commandments. Then Noach, then the Jewish people in Mitzrayim apparently were given commandments, meaning prophecy that was given to the leader of the generation, and this is pre-Moses. We're not saying who it is yet, but presumably it's the father of Moses, Amram. And then in Marah, which is after the exodus of Egypt, prior to the Sinai revelation, prior to the giving of the Torah. Ushar kol ha-mitzvahs kulan, and the rest of all the mitzvahs. Right. So that is the opinion of Rebbe. Re'ei, the Torah Sheleimah Shmois, Perek Beis, Zayin, V'rashi Chavta Al Dalud, Mefarish Kra. So then he sends us to look it up in another volume of his book of the Rabbi Kasher, and he brings down a Rashi, and he quotes. The verse says, "Vayichtav Moshe kol divrei Hashem v'geimer," and Moses wrote all the word of Hashem, etc. And Rashi brings down, "Mi breishis vad matan Torah," from the beginning, from Genesis 1:1 up until Matan Torah, Moses wrote at this point. Because of mitzvahs shnistavu b'Marah, and he wrote the mitzvahs, the commandments that they were commanded in Marah. So that's what Moses wrote right now, before the Torah is given, before God reveals himself. So Moses took parchment, took ink, and he wrote down, obviously it was divinely inspired, he writes, Bereshis bara Elokim es hashamayim ve'es haaretz. That's verse 1, and verse 2, and verse 3, and it goes on and on. He wrote the whole book of Bereshis. Then he wrote the book of Shmois, because all that has already happened up until that point, and he writes the mitzvahs that they were commanded in Marah.
So the commandments the mitzvahs that are commanded in Marah don't show up as such in our current Torah. So he did the Torah up to that point, and then he put in the extra one, and then
we'll see, because then what happened? Then he had to omit it, and like, what are the mitzvahs that were said in Marah exactly? There's a lot, but let's see. And this actually is not found in the Mechilta, this part that we just quoted. The pasuk Zayin, Then in verse 7, it says, Vayikach HaSefer HaBris, that he took the book of the covenant, which we quoted before. Mi Breishis vad Matan Torah. From Breishis up until the giving of the Torah, umitzvahs shestavu b'Marah. And from Bereshis up until the giving of the Torah and the mitzvahs they were commanded in Marah. V'sham yevuar, and over there it will be explained. Ula hashitois, and according to those opinions, sheve'ela mishpatim nemra b'Marah, that ve'ela mishpatim, meaning, see again, let's just clarify how it appears in the actual Chumash.
I forgot mine. It's
How
all
it-
right. You're making notes on yours. It's okay.
How it actually appears in the Chumash. First of all, let me again reiterate, the Torah is clearly not written in chronological order. It is not a history book, and therefore what it says in chapter 10 did not necessarily transpire prior to that which it says in chapter 11. That which God commands Moses in chapter 20 is not necessarily a commandment that he was given prior to chapter 30. Torah is written in the godly order that Moses was told to write it down. All right. However, we do have the story of creation, and we do know what happened on day 1, day 2, day 3, until we get to Shabbos, etc. So, Parshas Mishpatim, which again, this is what it's all based on, verse 1, which is in Shmois, Exodus, chapter 21, that's this volume, is written after the giving of the Torah. The Matan Torah, the giving of the Torah, is in chapter 19. So, you have the book of Shmois, and this Exodus. It starts off with telling us about the Jewish people being enslaved in Egypt, and then story about Moses, and then the burning bush, the revelation to him being appointed to be the Redeemer, going to Egypt, the 10 plagues, and then the actual Exodus. All right? Then you have splitting of the sea, and some other episodes, such as the Manna, the war of Amalek. Then, in the middle of what we call Parshas Yisro, Jethro, we have all the preparations, or actually I shouldn't say that because some of them again appear much later, even though they happened earlier. You have the preparations for the giving of the Torah, and then you have chapter 19, which is right in the middle of Parshas Yisro. Chapter 19 is when the Jewish people arrive at the foot of Sinai, that part of the desert, of the wilderness, and then you have the most famous, godly revelation when God revealed himself not to a handful of people, but to millions of people, and all of those details, and that is chapter 20. So the actual 10 Commandments, as they're called in English, starts off in chapter 20. Verse 1 is the introduction, so it's verse 2. Chapter 20, verse 2 is God saying the 10 Dibrois, the 10 Commandments, if that's how we're going to translate it, the famous 10 Commandments, and allow me to parenthetically take advantage of the point here, and I just want to make a clarification because I hear it so many times. The 10 Commandments are not universal. They are 10 Commandments for the Jewish people. They are not for Bnei Noach. It happens to be that the 7 mitzvahs Bnei Noach mostly are part of the 10 Commandments. They're the same ones, for the most part, or at least half of them. But they're not binding because of this statement. In other words, a Ben Noach, a human being who is not Jewish, is not forbidden to kill anyone because in Exodus 20, verse 13, it says, "Thou shalt not murder." That's not why. That's not where the prohibition comes from. They're not allowed to kill, it's true, but not because of this. This prohibition is for the Jewish people, and likewise anything else that you're going to find that overlaps. All right? So now, again, in chapter 20, we have the giving of the Torah. Fine. Then, chapter 21 is the beginning of the next Torah portion called Mishpatim, which is what we're focusing on now. Ve'ela HaMishpatim. So again, according to one opinion at least, that we're discussing right now, Ve'ela HaMishpatim was all said prior to the giving of the Torah at Har Sinai, at Mount Sinai. So it's out of order. Chapter 21 took place before chapter 20 and before chapter 19. It was somewhere as they're traveling, so it would be somewhere between chapter 15 or maybe 16 and chapter 19. Somewhere over there is where chapter 21 took place. Okay. What is it? A bunch of civil laws that are given by God to the Jewish people. All right, so we are about 20 lines down. The first word on the line is Visham in the right-hand column. Ula Hashitos. And according to those opinions, Sheve'ela Mishpatim, that this whole section of Ve'ela Mishpatim, which again is chapter 21, Nemra b'Marah was all said in this place called Marah before they got to Sinai. In Cain, Gam Ve'ela Mishpatim Nechtav HaKoidem. If so, then it was also written beforehand, which means that on that parchment, those sheets of parchment that Moses was writing from Bereshis, from the beginning of the Torah, up until that point, and the commandments they were given in Marah, he wrote Mishpatim as well.
Covenant of the Ancients, I think it's called. The Book of the Ancients. I forget what it's called.
Well, the verse calls it Sefer HaBris. So maybe they call it...
Yeah, Book of the Covenant. There we go.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, it's really not... this is, in other words, it's not really a Sefer Torah in the making. It's not like, okay, well, this was just the first section, but he's just going to keep adding to it, and then we have a kosher Sefer Torah. Well, not really, because he wrote Ve'ela Mishpatim, and he definitely did not yet write chapter 19 and 20. He didn't write chapter 20 yet. It hasn't happened yet, and he's not writing it before it happens. Okay. Ramban, Shmois Chavdalad Aleph, Chiluk al Rashi. The Ramban, in English that would be Nachmanides, and his commentary to Shmois, chapter 24, verse 1, he disagrees with Rashi.
Yeah, right there. It's different. I thought it was 24/7. Or is it on 24/1?
It's the Ramban, his commentary on 24:1. All right? It's in Parshas Shmois, in Book of Shmois, in Mishpatim. Yep. The Kosav, and he wrote, the Ramban writes, Sheinenu Nochoin, it is incorrect, Shapasuk Sham Gimel, that the verse 3, which states, Vayovei Moshe vayisaper la'am v'goymer, ve'is kol ha'mishpatim. The verse reads, verse Gimel, and Moshe came, and he told over to the people all the words of Hashem and all of the mishpatim, all the laws. And then the entire nation responded with one voice, and they said, all of these things that God has spoken, na'aseh, we will do. Then it says in verse 4, and Moshe wrote all of the words of God, and he got up in the early morning, and he built an altar at the foot of the mountain, and he made 12 monuments for the 12 tribes, and so on and so forth. Now, let's go back to verse 3. Moshe told the people and all the laws, all the mishpatim. Sheyiyu ala mishpatim shenitztavu b'nei Noach. This would refer to the laws that the Bnei Noach were commanded. V'shenemru lem b'Marah, and that were told to the Jewish people in Marah. Shekvar shamu, they already heard these. V'yadu oisam, and they already knew them. V'lo yomar v'yisaper ela b'chadoshos. So it can't be that, because the verse says v'yisaper, and he told them, which implies he's telling them news, not just reviewing and repeating what they already knew from Marah. And therefore, what it's going on is ve'ela mishpatim. In other words, according to Rashi, this same word mishpatim in verse 3 is the exact word that's used in the beginning of the parsha in chapter 21, where it starts, and it's telling us that it was repeated. And the Ramban says no, that he disagrees with that. Umitam zeh soiver haramban, and for this reason the Ramban holds sheparsha chaf dalid, that this chapter 24 nemra achar matam Torah was actually said after the giving of the Torah, after the whole revelation, after the 10 Commandments were said. Ayin sham ra'am uvigurari, and then Rabbi Kasher is telling us to look up in the commentaries on Rashi, which is more relatively recent commentaries. The Ra'am is known as Rabbi Yomi Zerachi, and the Gurari is actually probably more famously known as the Maharal of Prague. And they generally explain Rashi, and they question Rashi, and they try to explain and give clarification to difficult things in Rashi or to arguments that, such as the Ramban, against Rashi. And now there's another compilation called Psikta Zutrisa, which explains the words, the language in the Mechilta that we quoted, that says that Moshe Rabbeinu wrote from the beginning of Bereshis up to this point. Vayovi Moshe, again quoting this verse over here, 24:3, that Moshe came, Vayisaper Laham, it's called Divrei Hashem, and he told the people all the words of God, Vayizkol HaMishpatim Chulu, and all of the Mishpatim, Vayichtov Moshe, it's called Divrei Hashem, and Moshe wrote all the words of God, Eila Chukim HaMishpatim. These are the Chukim and Mishpatim, statutes and laws. Now, it uses the word es. The word es doesn't really have its own independent translation at times. Grammatically speaking, the word es oftentimes means with, such as the word im. The word es sometimes can be a prefix that kind of means the, but usually it would be a hey that at the beginning of the word. So the word es is, it appears to be, oftentimes, very often, an unnecessary word that's kind of a prefix. So it just looks like it's a stylistic way of saying things. Now, in Lashon HaKodesh, in Torah language, there is nothing superfluous, there's nothing extra. So this is the God-given language, and therefore every word has to have meaning and teaches us many things. So much so that when the word es appears and it seems to be extra, we could have said it without the word es, which oftentimes that is the case. The sentence would make perfect sense without the word es. So we have a tradition, and the rabbis explain to us what the word es is coming to add. There are many such examples. So in this case, it says es. Es, l'rabbis, the word es here is coming to include Sefer Bereshis, the book of Bereshis, the whole book of Genesis, ve'ela Shmois, and the book of Shmois, Exodus, ad v'yikhuli truma, until we get to the beginning of the parsha and the opening words of the next parsha, V'yikchu truma, which that would bring us all the way to Exodus chapter 25.
A little bit beyond.
Yeah. So in other words, the entire Mishpatim is included here. So it's half of the book of Shmois. All of Shmois, the whole story of the Exodus, and the story of the preparations for the receiving of the Torah, and the story of receiving the Torah, and all of these civil laws and the many, many mitzvahs in the whole Parshas Mishpatim. That's what he wrote, according to that.
According to the Ramban?
According to the interpretation of the Psikta to the Mechilta. V'usoiver, so he holds, Shezeh nemar kodim aseres hadibros, that this was actually said prior to the aseres hadibros, meaning the whole Parshas Mishpatim, all the laws of Mishpatim were told to Moshe before the Ten Commandments, before the revelation at Sinai. Urei b'pirish Rabbi Miyuchas of the Pirish HaKotzer Lo Ibn Ezra. Okay, so that's where to look it up to find some explanations. Okay, so it comes out, even Rabbi Kasher, when he throws around lots of references and he tells you, look here, look there, so, if we're not going to look it all up because that'll just make it, impossible. But what he does, he's very good. He's very good at make summaries. So he sums it up. So sometimes you've got to be a little bit patient in his writings because it seems like he's telling you, look here, look there, look here, look there, and he's telling you that he says this, and it seems a bit cryptic, but usually he's very clear and he'll sum it up. So he says it comes out now that we have 3 approaches, 3 opinions. Mosai Nemra Parshas Ve'ela Mishpatim. In when was this Parsha of Ve'ela Mishpatim said? When was Mishpatim, meaning Exodus, from the beginning of chapter 21, all right, all the way through the end of chapter 24. So when were those 4 chapters said? Aleph, number 1, B'Marah Koydem Matan Torah. The whole thing was said at Marah prior to the giving of the Torah. Beis, Samuch L'Matan Torah. Right before the giving of the Torah. Not in Marah, but it's kind of as the preparations for the receiving of the Torah.
Yes, Rashi's. So I knew that the Ramban and Rashi.
One moment. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Rashi says that it was on the 4th day of Sivan, which is, or maybe it was, let's see the Ramban, second. Yeah. According to Rashi, it was 2 days before the 10 Commandments were said. 10 Commandments were on the 6th of Sivan, and this was on the 4th day of Sivan. Okay? That's right. Gimel, the 3rd opinion, Lachar Matan Torah. It was said after the giving of the Torah, which is the chronological order for, not that has to be, but the 3rd opinion is Mishpatim was said after the 10 Commandments in Israel. Now we move on next. Okay, the next section, this is titled The 24 Avos Nezikin by Bnei Noach. Avos is a term literally means fathers, but it's when you have a head category that has subdivisions. And that's a language that is used in Mishnah a number of places. Avos Nezikin. The fathers, the head categories of civil laws or laws of damaging. So there are 24 Avos Nezikin by Bnei Noach. V'hinei. Dinin shenitztavu b'nei Noach koydem matan Torah. The laws that the Bnei Noach were commanded prior to the giving of the Torah. Quite obvious, right? Obviously, Noach was way before the giving of the Torah, so these laws were given, at least initially, before the giving of the Torah. Shitas haramban b'hasogos l'sefer hamitzvos sheresh yudalit. So again, the Ramban, Nachmanides, his opinion, and you can find this, he tells us where it is, in his commentary or his critique on the Rambam's Sefer HaMitzvahs, Sheresh Yudalut, the Rambam, Maimonides, who preceded the Ramban. So he wrote a Sefer HaMitzvahs where he lists all 6 to 13 commandments, and he usually spends about 1 paragraph per mitzvah. At the beginning, the Rambam writes a very, very lengthy introduction explaining what the Sefer HaMitzvahs is all about, what mitzvahs are, how to enumerate mitzvahs correctly, how we get to 613, what is a mitzvah, what isn't technically a mitzvah, and those that he claims before him that made mistakes. Everyone agrees to 613, but what are they? So he says others made mistakes, and he breaks it down to 14 general principles. And he gives us the 14 principles. Every principle is about 1 line, and then he explains each principle, and the explanation is about 10, 20 pages, and he explains the 14 principles. And then he starts listing 248 positive commandments, all the do's, and 365 negative commandments, all the don'ts. That's the Rambam's Sefer HaMitzvahs. And he constantly, in his introduction, is making reference to his predecessor and arguing and saying, here's where he made a mistake here, made a mistake there. Well, then the Ramban comes along years later, and he has his critique on the Rambam, and he wants to set it straight. So, on principle number 14, the Ramban, Nachmanides, argues on the Rambam, Maimonides, V'zel shoynoi. And now we quote the Ramban. Nitztavu Yisrael b'Marah b'zayin mitzvahs nitztavu b'nei Noach b'chulu. The Jewish people were commanded in Marah the 7 commandments that the Bnei Noach had been commanded. V'dinin, and laws, chulu, etc. Ne'emar, it's stated, ki hizir oisam ba'azharos hanemoris livnei Noach ba'asaris hahem atzmam. That basically, God was commanding, was making a prohibition, was warning the Jewish people in the laws, the 7, well, don't say 7, in the laws of the Bnei Noach, the Noachide laws, that they were already commanded. So it's kind of reiterating, or better yet, including the Bnei Yisrael, making it formal for them, even though you would assume, well, why not? Until this point, they are Bnei Noach. But that's what the Ramban is saying.
They were loosed at that time, though. So
he didn't say that yet. We didn't say that. But what he's saying is that the Bnei Yisrael were given in Marah the mitzvahs Bnei Noach. Yirtzeh, what he wants to say is, Shekololam lahem, that he generalized, he included them, incorporated them for them, Ad Shebol Har Sinai, until they came to Mount Sinai, which was a few weeks later. Shesham, that over there at Sinai, Nisbara mitzvahs, the commandments were explained bifratehen v'diktukehen chulu, in their detail and in all their nuances, etc. Avol bedinin, but when it comes to the laws, which would be civil laws, I guess, Omar b'mechilta, it says in the Mechilta, u'mishpat, when the verse says the word mishpat, law, elu dinei oinsin, v'dinei knossois, v'dinei chavalois. This refers to laws of coercion which, if I'm not mistaken, it's specifically referring to rape, and laws of fines, and laws of bodily damage. In other words, if one person in any way defiles or physically abuses another person, be it rape, be it beating up someone, breaking their bones, whatever. All of these are counted as one, even though there's so many laws. And in the 613, there are a bunch of mitzvahs, yet they're all included in this term called dinim, civil laws. But beforehand he writes, that the Bnei Noach were warned, were commanded in their commandments in general. Al derech mashal, and he gives an example. Ish el kol she'er b'sara le'sikrevu. El ha'em, ve'el ha'achois min ha'em, ve'eshes ha'chaver, v'im no'isam mitzvah achas. Mipnei zeh. It says like this: no man shall come close, no man shall have relations with his relative. One cannot have marital relations with his mother, with his sister from the same father, if it's his paternal sister, or the wife of a fellow, of someone else's wife. That's all included as one mitzvah, even though they're separate, different types of people. She's this, she's that. They're different relations. Yet, it all falls under the general umbrella prohibition of relative, even though one of them is someone else's wife. Ayin Sham, he tells us, take a look there. The Sham Mevaer, and over there he explains, the punishment for transgressing any of them was all a capital punishment, was death. That was the penalty. Uva Ramban Parshas Vayishlach, in the Ramban, on his commentary on Parshas Vayishlach, which is taking us back to the book of Bereshis, of Genesis, Lamed Daled Yud Gimel, 34:13. What does the Ramban there say? Valdaiti, in my opinion, says the Ramban, Hadinin Shemono Livnei Noach B'Sheva Mitzvahs Shalahem, these laws that are enumerated for the Bnei Noach in their 7 commandments, Einam Lohishiv Dayanim B'Chol Pelach U'Pelach Bilvad. It is not merely, see, one of the 7 mitzvahs Bnei Noach is called dinim, right? So he says, it doesn't merely mean to set up courts in every district. But he says, long list. I'll go back and try to translate them. He bunched up a whole bunch of financial crimes, which for the Jewish people is very clear and very detailed. He says that's all included in this general mitzvah for the Bnei Noach, one of them called dinim. Let's go back. Geneva, stealing, which that seems to be a separate one of the 7 mitzvahs of Bnei Noach, clearly. But see what he says. Oina'ah, that is being deceitful in business. Deception. What's the word I'm looking for? When you are being deceitful. No, but there's a word, deception. Well, when you're fooling someone. You're informing him or whatever in business. Or to another thing would be to force someone to sell something that they don't want to sell. It's you're paying them or to withhold payment of a worker. Or you have the shoimrim. There are 4 types of guards, of people that are holding on to someone else's property. Either it was given to the person to watch for payment. That's one watchman. Another one is it was given to him to watch for free. He agreed to do it without getting paid. Another one is he's renting it. All right? Another one is borrowing it. Those are all called shoimrim. So again, all those laws, and each one of those also entails its details. Or oines umefate. Oines is raping a woman, a girl. Umefate is seducing. And aves nezikin. Then you have the aves nezikin, which is making a reference to the very first Mishnah in Bava Kama, chapter 1, Mishnah 1, where it says there are 4 aves nezikin. Different types of general categories of damages that one person does with his property to someone else's property. Fire, the pit, the goring, the horn of an animal, tooth. Okay, that would be to physically hit someone, and then all the laws of borrower, lender, and borrower, and all the laws of buying and selling. That's a lot. That's basically all the laws of business: buying and selling, borrowing and lending, buying and selling, and the like. Same thing as all of these dinim, all of these laws, these monetary laws, these civil laws that the Jewish people were commanded. And the Ben Noach is killed for transgressing any one of them. That's not the case by the Yisrael. By the Jew, it's not a capital offense. This list that we just gave. Im ganav, oy oshak, oy onas, upita bitoy shel chaveiroi, oy shid l'kedishoy v'chaval boy. For example, he's going to list some of the ones we just gave in this long list. Someone stole. A non-Jew, a Ben Noach, stole. I need to take this call, sorry. Yechia Melech HaMashiach, hello. Baruch Hashem, ich hätte gewollt, wir calling gleich vor mein Schir, ich angeben schon lernen. Are we on? Okay.
I never knew where to turn it
Okay,
off.
it's okay. Ich habe schon angeben, ich halte mitten da. Ja, wie geht der Kasher? Angeben?
What?
There's only one person watching.
Yeah, but it's going to be
Fine.
broadcast, and we're going to have thousands of people once
What?
this takes off. We'll be looking at our archives.
Yeah, I'm giving you the Shir. Yeah.
It's all part one.
Yeah, we'll show them the show here.
But listen, when du Kasher
What do we got? We got the...
and by the way, you're going to probably have to put down towels and stuff. Mach sicher, dass die do it properly. Und noch dann, wenn du endlich efter Kidai zudecken, die alte Sink, was du hast gekaschert, in der Weg, als du sollst wissen, sicher, wenn du kommen rein zu arbeiten, wenn du bist nicht dort.
Did you see my...
Okay. So, Sorry.
Let's see if we can turn this around again. Okay.
Sorry about that. So if a Ben Noach stole from someone, or if he coerced him into giving him something, didn't steal, but he kind of forced him to give him something or sell him something, or he raped, or he seduced the daughter of a fellow man, or he lit a field on fire of someone else, or he striked someone else. He actually hit him and wounded him. Umichlala mitzvah zois, and included in this commandment, sheyeshivu dayonin, that they shall place judges, gam b'chol ir v'ir ki Yisrael. Also in every city, just like the Jewish people have a mitzvah to do that. In other words, that's included. That's part of it. The Bnei Noach need to have a system where they make courts and they place judges in every city, just like the Jewish people have such a mitzvah in the Parsha of Shoftim, all the way in the book of Devarim and Deuteronomy. So over there is the Parsha of Shoftim, which says you are to place judges in every city, in every district. So Bnei Noach have to do the same. But if they don't do that, they don't get killed for that. It's even though every one of the Sheva Mitzvahs Bnei Noach is a capital offense, but this one of Dinim, what it means is that all of these many, many laws, which seemingly are laws for Jews, they are for Bnei Noach as well. And if they transgress, it is a capital offense. But the general mitzvah of Dinim, meaning the simple meaning that you would assume means just make a court system, if they transgress that, if they fail on placing judges, for that they don't get killed. Shazu mitzvah saseh bohem, because that's a positive commandment. Dinim is the only one out of the 7 that's positive, right? All the rest are negative. Don't, thou shalt not. Think about it. Only the 7th one of Dinim is a positive one. Therefore, if they fail to fulfill the positive aspect of Dinim, which means they didn't appoint judges in the city, that is not a capital offense. Only all the details of Dinim, such as stealing, hitting, raping, etc. Because all that has been stated in the Talmud is that the warning, meaning to say the prohibition, the negative commandment, is a capital offense where they will be put to death. And the word azhara, which is the word that the sages use, the definition of that word, azhara, warning, can only refer to a negative commandment, a prohibition. And that is the way it's understood. He says that is the language of the Gemara, that's the understanding of the Talmud in Sanhedrin. Up to here is where we quoted the Ramban from Vayishlach. Okay, so this was paraphrasing the Ramban's very interesting explanation of what dinim is for Bnei Noach, what it includes, and when they are put to death for it, and when they are not. V'ayin barambam, Perek Yud Halacha Vav Milchas Melachim. And he tells us to take a look in the Rambam, chapter 10, law 6, in the Laws of Kings. Akum Shika Yisrael, a non-Jew, that striked a Jew, even if he actually wounded him, didn't just hit him, but he actually wounded him, made him bleed, does not get killed. See, he said etc. and does not get killed. If I remember correctly, what we saw there was that it says that even though it's a capital offense, but we don't kill him. Does that sound right?
No. The Akum means idol worshiper.
Well, we don't know what with the censorship over here. We mean any non-Jew. Because we're talking about Bnei Noach. So
it says Goy and Akum, doesn't say Ben Noach there.
Right, because the problem is that the censorship threw in Akum over there, but it's a halacha for Ben Noach.
Rambam knew about Ben Noach, though.
Right, and the censorship messed it up. Unfortunately,
you can look at the Arabic.
He wrote it in Hebrew, so we don't want an Arabic translation of the Mishnah Torah. This is the Mishnah Torah. This is not anything else where he wrote in Arabic. This is the Mishnah Torah, and if hopefully we have the manuscripts of everything, of all of it. But the printed version, or at least the classic printed version, up until very recently, where now they're fixing it all up, and you have all these, being corrected, whether it's Rabbi Kapach, or whether it's Rabbi Frankel, or all the different corrected, updated, proper versions. But the old standard one, which is full of mistakes, and amongst the many mistakes is all this censorship. So it says Akum all over the place, when originally it would say either Goy or Nachar or Ben Noach or whatever. But at any rate, in Rambam 10:6 of Laws of Kings, he says the non-Jew that hits the Jew, even if he wounded him, is not killed. So I think the part that he skipped where he says etc., I think there it says that although he's chayav misa. Let's actually take a quick look at that. But let's just do the next line. V'yavur, so it comes out understood, what's explained, says Rabbi Kasher, Shechayel kal shitas haRamban, shenerag. The Rambam argues on the Ramban. I mean, the Rambam came first, but that doesn't matter. We mean that he disagrees. The Rambam disagrees with the Ramban's approach, that the Ramban says clearly that he's killed. The Ramban says that that whole long list of things which are included in dinim, as long as it's a prohibition, as long as it's an action that someone did that they're not allowed to do, they are actually put to death. So the only thing that dinim is not a capital offense, the only part of dinim that they don't get killed for is if they fail to establish proper courts of law and put judges all over the place, because that's a positive thing. But as long as they transgressed the general mitzvah of dinim with one of these many details, so if they stole, or if they burned someone else's field, or anything, if they dug a pit in a public place and caused damage, anything, they will be put to death. And here the Rambam says clearly that no, not only are they not put to death if they hit someone, but even if he hit a Jew, and even if he wounded the Jew, he's not put to death. Let's take a look in that Rambam to remind us. Laws of Kings. We said 10:6.
Laws of 10:6, it would be Akum and Hilchos Avodah Zarah.
No. Laws of Kings. Not laws of Avodah
we're
Zarah.
talking about hitting the...
Yeah.
Oh.
10:6 of Law Kings. Okay, 10:6. Yeah. See, it says V'goy in this accurate one.
And then if you look at 10:10,
what?
Ben Noach.
So again, he quotes it as Akum because he's just going with the regular printed
He's
version.
going with the European version.
Which is, so he's not making a big deal. He means a non-Jew. That's what he means.
That's
the point he's making.
I'm absolutely positive the guy who wrote this means non-Jew.
Right.
And his whole idea about non-Jew is going to be Goy Ben Noach. It's going to be, he's not going to make a difference between a different Gedarim between a Ben Noach and a Goy. He doesn't know the different Gedarim.
Who, the Ramban?
This guy, whoever wrote.
No. Rabbi Kasher is simply trying to clarify all of the opinions here. So now he's telling us that the Ramban says that if a Ben Noach, meaning any non-Jew on the planet, anybody who's not Jewish, if he transgresses any one of the negative of the prohibitions, which is under the general prohibition called dinim, he is to be put to death, with the exception of the positive part of dinim, meaning they failed to put judges. For that, they're not put to death.
Right.
And then he says the Rambam disagrees with that, because the Rambam says that the non-Jew...
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He's assuming a Goy and a Ben Noach are the same thing, and they're not. A Goy is a bad Ben Noach.
No.
Yes.
We're trying to just see what the Rambam says. So the Rambam says that if a human being who's not Jewish if he strike the Yisrael, even if he wounded him, so I was right. Afal pishu chayiv misa. That's the part that he skipped here. He said etc. Even though he is chayiv misa, he is, I don't guess the word is liable. He is worthy of. It is a capital offense. Ein erag. He's not put to death. So although he transgressed a capital offense, he's not put to death, which would include if there were witnesses and a warning. Everything is proper. It's not just, technically we can't kill him. No, we don't kill him technically. This is a very interesting thing. It's a capital offense, but we don't execute the punishment. That's the halacha. That's what the Rambam says. V'rei Torah Sheleimah, Shmois, Perek Beis, Kuf Aleph, U'Bereishis, Perek Tes Chav Zayin, and then he tells us to look up two other places in his books in the Torah Sheleimah, one earlier in Shmois and one in Bereishis. Shevesi, that I brought down, says Rabbi Kasher, Sheharamban ba'atzmei kosav, that the Ramban himself wrote, Shal chavala eine chayv misa, that for wounding someone, the Ramban writes that the non-Jew is not chayv misa, doesn't have to be put to death. And seemingly it contradicts what we just quoted that the Ramban does say, and it says, well, take a look in those other two references that I told you what I wrote, and over there, hopefully...
Are they including civil laws?
Yeah. He's saying,
with the mishpatim?
Yes.
So laws of damages and all that, how would a person say that's a liability for the death penalty in a case of loss of damages?
He says it's one of the Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach, and even though it falls under the category of dinim, and dinim is a positive mitzvah, he says, but it's a negative part of that. That's why. In other words, Ben Noach is chayev misa for any transgression, with the exception of the positive part of dinim, of appointing judges. That's the one thing which is according to the Ramban, which a Ben Noach would not be put to death for. It's all the civil laws, all these things of...
But the civil laws, you're talking about like oxen goring oxen and
right.
all that. Those are not criminal cases that would cause a death penalty. Those are civil.
No, according to the ways explaining the Ramban, it would be.
According to the
Ramban.
Ramban.
Yes. Why? Because Torah says, don't let your ox damage someone else's ox. All right? So it's a don't. And it's a commandment. And you transgressed. Death. Why is that any different than eating a limb off of a live animal? Why is that a death penalty? For a Jew it isn't. That's his point. So saying it's a disagreement between the Rambam and the Ramban. Okay, let's take it to the next step now. This is the third part. Dinei b'nei Noach k'moi dinei Yisrael. The laws of the b'nei Noach is like the laws of Yisrael. Uv'shalos v'tshuvas harama zal siman yud. In the responsa of the Ramah, now the Ramah came much after the Rambam and the Ramban. The Ramah is Reb Moshe Isserlish. He is the Ashkenazic codifier. He is on the Shulchan Aruch that was written by Rabbi Yosef Karo. The Ramah is the one who has the Haggais, all of the notes, the commentaries, where he always interjects his opinion, and Ashkenazic Jewry, as a rule, follows the Ramah. He's part of the Shulchan Aruch now. So he also wrote a separate book called Shas Tshuvas, responsive questions that he was asked in Jewish law, and his response. Siman Yud, in chapter 10 over there, Mevia Gemara Sanhedrin Untes. So the Ramah quotes, he brings down the Talmud, Tractate Sanhedrin 59a, and he quotes, Amar Rabbi Yechanan. Rabbi Yechanan says, this is a quote from the Talmud, Sanhedrin. Zayin mitzvahs nitztavu b'nei Noach v'cholu. 7 commandments were the sons of Noach commanded, etc. Vayetzav. And then he's pointing out different things that the Gemara says there, how we know it. So the Gemara learns out from the word Vayetzav, and he commanded. That's a word in the verse. That refers to dinin. That refers to civil laws, v'chulu, etc. Then the Gemara says, Kiyasa Rabbi Yitzchak, when Rabbi Yitzchak arrived, when he came, Tana Ipcha, he taught the opposite of this Rabbi Yechanan. Rabbi Yitzchak said, no, the opposite. Vayitzav, he says on that word, Vayitzav, and he commanded, Zu Avodah Zarah. That's referring to idolatry. Eloikim, Zudinim v'chulu. And the word Eloikim in that verse, the verse says, and God commanded. So he says the word vayitzav, that teaches us the prohibition of idolatry, of avodah zarah. Elokim, that teaches us dinim. Because, you see, the word Elokim, although it's one of the names of Hashem, and Lahavdil, avodah zarah uses that also, and when it says in the Torah you're not allowed to worship other gods, it also uses the word Elokim. But interestingly, in the Chumash, undisputably, the word Elokim also means human judges. In Parshas Mishpatim, there is a usage of that word where everybody agrees. There is no one who disagrees. The word Elokim is used, and it clearly means judges. That's all it means. In other words, why is God called Elokim? Because he's the ultimate judge. Now, as the word has a translation in the language of the Torah, the word literally means, it doesn't have to mean divinity. It means that because of what it originally means literally. Literally, Elokim means judges. And therefore, that's the term, one of the names we use for Hashem. So, we have a different opinion over here. So we have a dispute as to which word teaches us dinim for Bnei Noach. V'lachein nira loymar, and therefore, this is now the Ramah speaking, and therefore, it seems to say, it appears we should say, shein tzarich lefaresh, we don't need to explain chiluk, the difference, shebein Rabbi Yechanan and Rabbi Yitzchak. He says, I don't have to tell you the difference between Rabbi Yechanan's interpretation, how he learns it out from one word, and Rabbi Yitzchak's. Because it's as clear as the sun in midday, broad daylight. And now he explains. Ki Rabbi Yochanan haloi meidinin mivayitzav. Rabbi Yochanan, who learns out the mitzvah of the 7 mitzvahs b'nei Noach of dinim, he learns that out from the word vayitzav, and he commanded. Soiver, Rabbi Yochanan holds. This is the Ramah speaking. Sheben Noach eina mitzuveh. Rabbi Noach is not commanded. Rak lishmar haminag, but he's only required, only commanded to keep, to guard the custom hamedini of that country, of that civilization. V'ladun ben ish uvein achiv, and to judge between one man and his brother, uvein geiroi, and one fellow man, mishpat yosher, justly. Just to set up, Rabbi Yochanan holds, just have a law, a system, a proper, fair, just system. But it's not in the same fashion as it is for Jewish law. We were given details. The Jewish code of law, the Shulchan Aruch, which is based on Gemara, which is based on Mishnah, and all of that is based on the law that God gave Moshe, that's civil laws which are divine. They were given by Hashem with all these details. But for Bnei Noach, according to Rabbi Yechanan, Rakul Choykni Musi, it's just common. It's just common sense and just what you would say, just be civil. So they have to make laws that are logically making sense. That's all. But they don't have to try to follow all of these nuances and all of the details as they apply within Jewish law, between one Jew and another Jew. No, they just have to have a proper system with details of laws. Just keep everything civil and peaceful and make sure that everybody treats each other properly. And therefore, that's why Rabbi Yochanan learns out this mitzvah of having a court system of dinim, pasuk vayitzav, from the word, from the verse that says, and he commanded. And he learns it out from the comparison to the verse that it says by Avraham Avinu, ki yadaitiv, that I know him, that he is going to command his children and his descendants to go in the proper path. Shadayin lo nitzna Torah. It's very specific why he brings a pasuk all the way from Avraham Avinu. Because the Torah was not yet given. That's the whole point. Here we have a human being who behaved so properly and educated others to do the same prior to the giving of the Torah. Avraham did not, at least officially and formally, he didn't have all of these laws that were given later by the giving of the Torah. He didn't have those. So what does it mean that he was just and righteous and kept the law? It means common sense. Because, says the Ramah, according to Rabbi Yechanan, the laws for Bnei Noach and the laws for Yisrael are totally separate. Of course, there's going to be a lot of overlap, but don't mix the two. And therefore, if you want to know how a Ben Noach is supposed to conduct himself and all the don'ts and all the regulations, don't learn Parshas Mishpatim and Chumash. That's the Jewish law. That, so to say, has got nothing to do with anybody other than the Jew. But on the other hand, the one who argues on Rabbi Yechanan in the Gemara, Rabbi Yitzchak, he's got a totally different spirit with him. He takes it completely differently. It says the Ramah, what does Rabbi Yitzchak hold? He's learning out the Bnei Noach rule of dinim, of having laws, from the word elikim in the verse. B'gzera shava, and what's he comparing it to? The v'nikra of balabais v'goymer, from a verse in Parshas Mishpatim, which says that if two people have a dispute, so it says if someone claims that this guy has his property or stole from him or whatever, so it says that he should then approach the judges. And that's the verse that says the word elikim. Kloimar, meaning, V'soiver shedine b'nei Noach, that Rabbi Yitzchak clearly holds that the dinim, the civil laws of b'nei Noach, hein oisan dinin shnistav Yisrael b'Sinai. They are exactly the same laws that the b'nei Yisrael were commanded at Har Sinai. And therefore he learns them out, he derives them, Mikra Nemar b'Sinai, from a verse which is stated at Sinai. V'hakoil echad, and it's exactly identical. And therefore, according to Rabbi Yitzchak, you know what's really appropriate for a non-Jew to study? Parshas Mishpatim! Those laws, all the details and all these mitzvahs in Parshas Mishpatim apply to mankind. Exactly as they apply to the Jew, they apply to the non-Jew. That's Rabbi Yitzchak's approach. Very different approach. This is how it appears to explain this sugya, this discussion in Sanhedrin 59. The argument between Rabbi Yechanan and Rabbi Yitzchak, don't just think, oh, it's just a matter of which word we derive it from. Not a big deal. They both agree that there's dinim for Bnei Noach. It's just a matter, is it vayitzav or elikim? Oh no, says the Ramah. It's a very major difference. V'af ki harambam. You have the place? You with me?
I'm working on it.
Okay, we're about 9 lines from the bottom. Right after one of the...
Oh, yeah. Okay.
V'af ki Rambam posak b'hilchos melachim, and although the Rambam gave his halachic ruling in the laws of kings, she'ein mitzuvin ladun rak b'zayin mitzvahs shalahen, the Rambam clearly states when he describes the 7 mitzvahs b'nei Noach, and then when he gets to the mitzvah of dinim, he says clearly that they, the b'nei Noach, are only commanded to judge and to rule in their mitzvahs, meaning...
Goy and Akum there in the Rambam.
Again, he's talking about the human being.
Yeah, he says, right.
So the question is, what is a non-Jew required to do? They got 7 mitzvahs. Mm-hmm. So according to the Rambam, even though the Rambam says that dinim means make sure that everybody keeps the other 6. That's the mitzvah of dinim. Mikol Mokim, nonetheless, however, in those mitzvahs they are obligated to judge according to the Jewish law. In those
7?
in those 6. Gam nire lifsek Rabbi Yitzchak, and now also it appears that we should follow from the Gemara Rabbi Yitzchak as opposed to Rabbi Yochanan. We should follow Rabbi Yitzchak, namely, mideshakla v'taria Gemara basrei lemifrach my binau v'chulu. Since the Gemara has a discussion afterwards to try to figure out what's the practical difference between these two approaches of Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Yitzchak, so from the whole continuation of the discussion in the Gemara, it seems like we are, in fact, going to follow Rabbi Yitzchak. V'oid acheres, and furthermore, and this is stressed, mideparich beGemara, from the fact that the Gemara asks, this is much earlier in Sanhedrin, this is 26b in Sanhedrin. The Gemara asks the following question: Dinin b'nei Noach afkid. You're telling me, says the Gemara, that b'nei Noach are commanded to keep dinim, that they have to keep laws. V'hatanya, but didn't we learn in a brisa? Eser mitzvahs nitztavu Yisrael b'Marah v'chulu. The Jewish people were commanded 10 commandments in Marah. Ad Kamar, until the Gemara says, Elo Amar Rava, but rather Rava says, Hai Tana Devei Menashehu. This Tana, who taught that, he's a particular Tana of a certain school, Demapik Dinin V'chulu, that excludes Dinim, Shemuchachu Mizeh, from this, it comes out proof, Shilchasa Rabbi Yitzchak, that the halacha is in fact like this Rabbi Yitzchak in Sanhedrin 59. Shall kol dinei Yisrael bichlalu bifrat nifkedu, that the Bnei Noach are commanded in all the laws of the Jewish people in general and in particular. Dim loikin, because if you're not going to say that, elashoyalem miktas dinin, if you're just going to say that some dinim, so why then does Rava over there need to come up with this answer and to try to push and say that it's only talking about laws of paying a fine? There's also regular laws that they're not commanded. Rava should have said very briefly and simply, that it's only needed for the other dinim that they weren't originally commanded. Elal karchach, therefore you have to say, tzrichin anuleimar, we must say, shilchas like Rabbi Yitzchak, that Allah is in fact like Rabbi Yitzchak, shal kol hadinin b'yachad nifkedu k'derech shnitnu Yisrael misinai, that on all the laws, every single civil law, they were commanded just like the Jewish people were given at Sinai. Whatever halachas, whatever laws, monetary laws, apply to the Jewish people, apply to everybody. That's what he says, and that is the opinion of Rabbi Yitzchak, obviously except for if the Torah makes a very clear exception. But as long as there's no exception, dinim includes all of the, so to say, Jewish civil laws as well. Gami Bal Hamor Hagodol Rashi, also from the very great Jewish, from the luminary Rashi, Umilashoinoi Hazaka, from his clear language, Yechoilin Anu Ledaktek, we can also prove Dilchasa Hika Rabbi Yitzchak v'chulu, that the halacha is like Rabbi Yitzchak, if you analyze the language of Rashi in his commentary. Imkain Mikol Halein Shmamina, if so, says Rashi, from all of this we can hear the Ben Noach Muzar B'chol Dinei Yisrael, that a Ben Noach is obligated and is commanded in all the Jewish laws, Kechol chukaisav u'mishpatav v'chulu atkan. I don't know if that's Rashi's language or the Ramah maybe. Okay. So atkan up to here, meaning this was all a quote of the Ramah. So the Ramah really goes all out and explains the dispute, the way he understands Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Yitzchak, and then he makes it really clear that he holds la halacha. This is the Ramah. This is not just how to learn the Gemara. This is the Ramah giving us halachic ruling. He says la halacha we paskin, we followed Rabbi Yitzchak, and that is that Bnei Noach have to have the same laws, monetary laws, civil laws, damages, internal relationship laws between people like Bnei Yisrael. So now, says Rabbi Kasher, Umevur, so it comes out now explained, Shadas HaRamah, that the opinion of the Ramah, Shel Rabbi Yitzchak, that according to Rabbi Yitzchak, Dinei Bnei Noach hein oisam dinin shnitztavu Yisrael b'Sinai v'hakol echad. So it comes out very clear that according to Rabbi Yitzchak, the laws of Bnei Noach are the same exact laws that the Jewish people were given at Sinai. No difference. And on all the laws, the Bnei Noach were commanded, just as they were given to the Jews at Sinai. And the Ben Noach is commanded in these 7, just like the Jew is commanded in all of the laws. And then he's telling us to take a look again back to the, this is all supplements, but back in the original book. So footnote 28, he says, Hafu b'shedinim k'dinei Yisrael, v'yis chavtes, hari hagoyim shadonu k'dinei Yisrael, v'l'shar yisur chasam soifer, chelik vav simen yudalud, moisif piru divrei Ramah, the Chasam Sofer, who actually was even more recent than the Ramah, the Chasam Sofer, who was a big Jewish codifier in Hungary. So he adds explanation to the words of the Ramah, and he says, Shelaman de Omar Rishon, according to the first opinion, Kol Melech Ba'atzmoi, Yachkik Leil Mishpatim Al Kol Pratu Prat, that every king in whatever country should make up his own laws with all their details, Lefi Cheftzoi, as he wishes, as he sees fit. And then once the king of a particular province or country or whatever makes laws, whatever law this non-Jewish king made now is binding by Torah law for all of those non-Jews living in his country as part of dinim. That would be the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan, the first opinion. Because this is what Hashem has established. That the non-Jewish world should establish laws and proper manners and customs when it comes to cheating in business, or when it comes to laws of competition in business, or having guards, and how much to fine a thief, etc. But according to the other opinion, which would be Rabbi Yitzchak, they are absolutely obligated and required to follow Torah law. So the Chasam Sofer clearly agrees with the Ramah, and he even sharpens it a bit. He even makes it really clear. And he says, first opinion, which is Rabbi Yochanan, he says, this is how it works, dinim.
The Chasam Sofer disagrees with the Rambam in this Rebbe's opinion on what the Rambam was saying previously, how he's associating Bnei Noach with the Goy of 10:9.
We're not getting into that right now. Right now we're saying that there's one type of human being.
Right.
Besides for the Jew.
The Chasam Sofer says there's 2, and he's bringing in the Chasam Sofer.
Where does Chasam Sofer say that?
He says it. It's brought down in. He says it on his commentary on Sanhedrin.
But we're now talking about the Chasam Sofer, how he explains the mitzvah of dinim that Bnei Noach have to keep.
Right.
So who has to keep Shev Mitzvahs Bnei Noach? Who's required? Who's obligated in Shev Mitzvahs Bnei Noach?
Bnei Noach.
Who's that?
Bnei Noach, the children of Noah.
So anybody except for a Jew who's a biological descendant of Noach, has to keep those laws.
Maybe. What about a ger b'sharecha that is in your gates that you give nevel to? He's not a Jew.
Does he have to keep the
he's a
Sheva
ger.
mitzvahs? Does he have to keep the Sheva mitzvahs?
He has to keep the 7 mitzvahs.
Okay.
But he can also do more, and that's what the
I'm not
Hashem
asking about
Sefer
more.
is
I'm asking
talking
about more. I'm asking who's obligated
Yeah.
to keep the Sheva mitzvahs.
That's fine. But
Okay.
that's not my. We agree on that,
Is dinim one of that?
of course.
Okay, so the question is, what does dinim mean? Let's define it. So he's saying, well, there's a dispute. There's two opinions.
There's a bunch of disputes, and I don't think this rabbi is understanding this Rambam, this Peshat Rambam.
Oh, first of all, give him a chance. He's got about 50 pages.
Okay.
And we're still on page 2.
I'll give him a chance.
And let's stay focused.
Okay.
We could reject what he says. We could question what he says.
Right.
We could misunderstand what he says.
Well,
We're
for
allowed
the
to make.
sake of learning, we'll keep. I'll
We're
keep,
allo-
I'll
but no,
try
I'm
and
saying- no,
my
I'm
best
saying-
to keep my mouth shut.
No. I'm saying, let's stay focused.
Yeah.
In other words, if we know more information, let's right now hear what he has to say, like as if we know nothing of anything, and whatever. If we look up something,
Well,
fine.
he already brought down 10.9 is what I'm saying. He already brought in 10.9.
10:6.
But then he brought in 10.9 about
Maybe you're right. What did he say?
a goy can't learn Torah.
He didn't say that.
Maybe we talked it in passing.
I didn't even mention that. No one said that. That wasn't you. We're on record now. He didn't say that.
Okay. He should only be involved in his Sheva mitzvahs. We did bring that. We did talk about that.
We didn't. What do you mean by where?
Yeah, we did. He should only be involved in his Sheva mitzvahs. I believe it was the top of the left column, first paragraph. So,
Dinim shmona v'nech shem mitzvahim
Zion mitzvahs. Zion mitzvahs.
That whole paragraph was saying that they need to be put to death for transgressing the details of dinim, but for the general mitzvah of dinim, since that's a positive commandment, then they're not put to death.
Yeah, but I thought we read that he should only be involved in his 7.
I don't think that's accurate. I don't recall that.
Okay.
So again, according to the Ramah and now the Chassam Sofer, there's a big difference between the two opinions of the Gemara, Rabbi Yechanan and Rabbi Yitzchak. According to Rabbi Yechanan, the way the world is supposed to look is as follows. You have 70 nations. Every nation's got a king. Okay. Each king or government, but each king is hopefully not a corrupt, selfish, maniac. Each king, obviously he's more interested in his country than other countries, I understand that. But each king is going to set laws for his people. Fine. And therefore, in one country, it's illegal to do this in business. In another country, that's fine. So he says, guess what? If you're a citizen and you're living in country A, you need to follow your king's laws by Torah law, because that's dinim, that's one of Hashem mitzvahs b'nei Noach. However, your first cousin, who's a citizen and a native and lives in the other country, doesn't need to follow that law because his king has a different rule. And that's Torah law for Ben Noach. That's how Rabbi Yechanan looks at it. Every king makes his laws, and you have to follow those laws. And if not, it's a capital offense. And the laws change, so you got to know the rules. Okay, so in one country, doing business like this, no problem. This contract, it's a legal contract. You use that same language, that same contract in a different place, you're transgressing. Why? Different laws. Okay. According to Rabbi Yitzchak, no such thing. No such thing. That's not the jurisdiction of any particular non-Jewish king. He has no right to do that. They should all be learning the Jewish law. Learn the Shulchan Aruch. Choshen Mishpat section, not Ur Chaim. Ur Chaim speaks about how to put on tefillin, speaks about how to keep Shabbos. No, not that part. Don't speak about Even Ezer. No, Even Ezer is about how to get married properly by a Jew and how to get divorced. Not that part either. Okay. But there's the whole section called Chosh and Mishpat. That section, the non-Jews should be learning it. Parshas Mishpatim is the Chumash, but obviously we can't derive practical halacha from Chumash, but that's where it comes from. So learn Mishpatim. Learn tractate Bava Kama, Bava Metzia, Bava Basra, a big chunk of Sanhedrin. Got a lot to learn. And then learn the Shulchan Aruch. And that's the way the non-Jewish world should be keeping dinim. They can't make up their own laws. Very big difference. Now the fourth part. Dinei b'nei Noach, dinim nimusiyim. That the laws of b'nei Noach are laws, as he mentioned this before, that one approach is, that this is basically Rabbi Yechanan's approach, that they are proper manners. It's not like it's etched in stone and it's like, for the Jewish people. It's common sense. Let's see what he says. V'yesh, I'm not sure what this acronym is. It's not what it usually stands for. It won't make any sense. Lamed Hey Reish. It means something like we need to understand. V'yesh, lahavin, whatever. Lepirush haRamah b'shitas Rabbi Yechanan. According to the Ramah, his understanding of Rabbi Yechanan. Now, until now, Rabbi Kasher didn't really say anything of his own. He just brought down what the Ramah says. The Ramah says it. So we need to understand now. This is Rabbi Kasher speaking. According to the Ramah's understanding in Rabbi Yechanan, Shebnei Noach nitztavu b'dinin, that Bnei Noach were commanded in dinim. Hainu, what does it mean? Lishmar achukim hanemusim, to just keep the proper common sense laws. Medivrei echad min hakadmonim. I'm sorry. I just figured out what it means, what the acronym is.
What is it?
Lahavi raya, to bring a proof. Okay, again, so let's go back. V'yesh lahavi raya, now says Rabbi Kasher, actually, I can bring a proof to the Ramah's understanding in Rabbi Yechanan from somebody who preceded the Ramah by many generations. V'yesh lahavi raya lepirush haRamah, we can bring a proof to the interpretation of the Ramah, b'shitas Rabbi Yechanan, in Rabbi Yechanan's approach. Shebnei Noach nitztavu b'dinin, that what does it mean, according to the Ramah's understanding of Rabbi Yechanan, what does it mean that Bnei Noach are commanded in these laws? Hainu lishmar chukim hanemusim, this means to just keep the civil, common sense laws. Midivrei echad min hakadmonim, we could bring a proof from a statement made by one of the much earlier great rabbis. Shapoiskim arishonim ha'orches chayim kol boi meiri ishtamshu besifroi. And just to give you his credentials, Rabbi Kasher is saying, don't think that I'm just pulled somebody out of a hat from way back. The person I'm about to quote by name, well, he's authoritative enough because who used his book, and then he gives you a list of very responsible and reliable commentaries that everybody relies on. The Orchos Chaim, the Kolboy, the Meiri, they all used his sefer. And who am I talking about? Hu Rabbeinu Yaakov Antuli. Who's he? Chasane Shel Reb something Even Tivon. Reb Shmuel Even Tivon. He's the son-in-law of Reb Shmuel Even Tivon. Okay, so now I'm telling you who it is. And that means he lived shortly after the Rambam, or right around then. I mean, obviously lived a long time ago if the Meiri uses him. Reb Shmuel Even Tivon, if I'm not mistaken, is the one who originally translated the Rambam's Arabic into Hebrew. And the Rambam actually gave a general approval to what he did. Okay? He said in general it's a good translation. Although later on, people said when you go into it in detail, they disagree with a lot of things, but he's translator. So this Rabbi Yaakov Antuli is his son-in-law. Okay. The Sefer Melamed HaTalmidim. So he wrote a Sefer called Melamed HaTalmidim, teacher of the students. Parshas Noach, and in his Sefer, in his commentary on Parshas Noach, Kosav B'inyan Zeh, he writes about this whole topic of Rabbi Yochanan in Sanhedrin 59, where he learns it out from the word Vayitzav, that whole discussion that the Rama brought in. And let us quote what Rabbi Yaakov Antuli writes. And although the laws were not clarified, were not explained, and it's one of the commandments, one of the 7, because the Talmud does say that the Bnei Noach were commanded for dinim, so it's one of the mitzvahs Bnei Noach. It says they were commanded on laws. V'yodua, and it's known, ki b'kol am v'am dinin musmachin, that in every single nation there are accepted laws. In civilization, every country has its laws that they just agree upon. Im mipi ish shu mispoyer shu shliach Hashem, whether it came to be because there's an individual who has the gall to claim that he is an emissary or an agent of Hashem. So that's how some countries got their laws, where some dude came along and said, God told me, okay.
Yes.
And then they became law. And then you got 10 generations later, they're still keeping what he... Im, or alternatively, mipi melech, simply a king. The guy had power and he said, these are the laws I'm making. Oy mipi shoifei ta'amahu, or a judge. There's a judge who was judging those people. However it developed, but every country has its set of laws. Hamitzvah bazehi, so says this Rabbi Yaakov Antuli. So what is the mitzvah for the people of the world? What is their mitzvah of dinim? L'chol b'nei Noach, for all the descendants of Noach, the mitzvah is that he should do according to the laws which have been established. Chakuk literally means engraved, which is, etched in the law and his nation. Because the whole point of law is to make the world civilized. And then he quotes, of course, what our rabbi said, what the Talmud says, Dina de Malchusa Dina Chulu, that the law of the government is law. Okay? Because you want to have a civilized country, so therefore there have to be certain rules and regulations, and there's laws in place, and they carry the law according to the Torah. Okay. And furthermore, the same Sefer, Rabbi Yaakov Antuli, in his commentary on Parshas, that was in Noach. In Mishpatim, he gives even more clarification. And he says as follows, and we quote, after the Chumash, after Hashem in Parshas Mishpatim speaks about the laws of freedom, because remember, the first mitzvah in Mishpatim is about an Eved Ivri, about a Jew owning a fellow Jew as his slave, and then how he goes free, when he goes free, and all those rules. So after it speaks about laws of freeing a slave, Seder Nizke Gufam, then it speaks about damages, bodily damages, if someone harms someone else physically. And then afterwards, it speaks about damages of property. You know, he's explaining the logical order of the mitzvahs in Parshas Mishpatim. That's what he's doing in the Sefer. And afterwards, after he explains the property damages, the laws of interaction when it comes to having guards, when you give someone something to watch, or he borrowed or rented, because it's impossible to have society without these things. Obviously, people have to borrow things, and people have to rent things, and people have to watch things for other people. That's because you cannot grasp, you won't succeed. People can't live without needing other things from other people. It's just a necessity to financially interact with other people. So therefore, you need all these laws of borrowing, etc. V'chol hadinim anizkarim sham, and he says all the laws mentioned there in Parshas Mishpatim, bo derech ktsara ma'od, they came very short, very brief. I mean, it's Chumash, so it's just written in a very brief way. Gam dinim rabim hinicha Torah shleizkira klal davar minyanam, and he says furthermore, there are many topics or many laws that the Torah didn't touch upon at all. Hafilu al derech remez, it didn't even mention them in a way of a hint. The Chumash hints to something over here with an extra word or something. There are many laws that you can come up with, and you will find that the Torah does not address, the Chumash doesn't address, even by hint. Talmud. They're mentioned in the Talmud. That's the job of the oral law. That's why the Talmud is hundreds of times longer than the written law. That's the whole point. And when it comes to all those details and all those laws, the Talmud does not ask the common question that it asks so often, and that is, how do you know that? It doesn't challenge all these many laws and say, where do you get it from? Which verse? And we don't even find that they were part of the oral tradition. It's not like, oh, Moshe said, here's the laws that God told me to write in Parshas Mishpatim. But now I have oral laws that I'm going to tell you and pass it on from generation to generation. No, we don't find that that's the case. Says this Rabbi Yaakov Antuli, that's because the mitzvah of having these types of civil laws is a very early mitzvah. Ve'ena kishar mitzvahs HaTorah. It is unlike all the other commandments of the Torah, meaning the rituals or the religious, I should say, or whatever. It's not like those. Because when Bnei Noach were commanded on dinim, which is way before the giving of the Torah at Sinai, because the mitzvah was only that people should organize laws amongst each other. Because the world stands on din. That is one of the pillars upon which the world stands. So therefore, what God commanded mankind is, make yourselves a set of rules. And then, we're quoting him in Mishpatim, so he makes reference himself. This is Yaakov Antuli. He says, and I already explained this in my commentary on Parshas Noach. And so it was after the giving of the Torah, for whatever they weren't explicitly commanded, so then everything else falls into the same general category. That this, whatever mitzvah was given over to the judges of that time, of that location, they have to implement the laws as is proper for the country. So each country has to decide what is proper for our country. What works for our civilization may not have been the same 100 years ago. It may not be the same in 100 years from now, which we can't foretell. And it may not even be the proper way to run things in a different country. We're not, but this is our law. So that's how we use it. So that's really very much Rabbi Yochanan style as opposed to Rabbi Yitzchak. Now this is something which is done. This is something which is kept. It's customary today between the nations. Gam l'soicharim, for business people, and for professionals. It was given over to them to establish laws. You make your laws as needed. You're a professional. This is the laws of this profession. And this is the laws of this profession. And this is how you do business here. And this is how you do business there. Make all the laws you need to make. Say if the person didn't give a down payment, he can retract. If he gave a down payment, he can't retract. Say if he signed his name, so then that's it, it's binding. Say if he gave a handshake, whatever you want to make up. Say handshake is not strong enough, and signature doesn't mean anything. Signature does mean something. You have to have your first name and your last name. I don't know. Make up the laws that work for your country. It's very open-ended. But make laws and go into detail, and then that's what people have to keep. As it says in Tosefta, that's again, it's Tanoic level, it's like Brisa. In Bav Mitzia, chapter 11 and 12, it says like this: Rashain, permissible, Chamorin, for donkey drivers, Lahasnois Beinehem, to make condition between themselves. So you're talking about within the enterprise, or whatever it's called, within the world, the market of the donkey drivers.
Boy Street, you gotta have it right away.
Exactly. Kol mi sheyevad lechamor, they can make the following rule: whoever loses a donkey, shemamidin lechamor, that everyone else has to give him another donkey. They all have to pitch in. So you got to. So in other words, union basically. In other words, that's what's known today in the United States as a union. So the Gemara, the Tosefta Bava Metzia speaks about a union. The donkey union. V'chein asaponin. And then it goes further and says the same thing with the sailors. Rashayin lasnis b'neim, they're allowed to make a condition between themselves. Al misha toivad le'sfina, someone who loses his ship, right? The boat got a hole and it went, it's gone. Shemamid le'sfina, that everyone else has to give him. They have to. You can't say, no, I didn't agree. Excuse me, you're in this profession, you agree. This is how we run it. It's not mafia. It's union. And it says elsewhere, Bava Basra 9a, Man de avid b'yoyma de lav delay likro lemashche. Whoever does something when it's not his day, they should rip up his thing. In other words, you don't have a right. There's rules for contractors. You can't just throw your weight around. You can't just bully. There's rules. You're not allowed to. This is not your territory, or this is not your day, it's not your whatever. Or like they said, behanohu, in those dikloi, of those, I think it has to do with trees or something. Yeah, some people came to do business in a different city, and the people of that city are allowed to stop them. In other words, if in our city we have people that are selling clothing, and came somebody from a different city, no. They could stop these peddlers, but they have a rule. They say, excuse me, you're not allowed to. So just like today in the United States or any other country like that, you have
tariffs and things. Like tariffs, you can embargo.
Yeah, but I was thinking you need a permit.
Oh, a permit.
The whole thing of permits is what it's describing. In one word, before it was union, now it's permit. You need a permit. What do you need a permit for, right? You can't just do that. And then there's laws of taxes. You can't just everything. So that's and now that's all dinim. Yes, it is. And therefore, what's legal in one country is illegal in a different country. That's Torah law. What do you mean? It's man-made. Torah says whatever the governing power makes up is binding by Torah law. And anything like this, these are just some examples. Hudin, it's a law. Wow, that's very strong language. It's as if it's written in the Torah. So if in your country, as of 1921, in the state of Illinois, because a bunch of people got together, they weren't even the most brilliant people, but they have power because of the hierarchy, because of the system that we have. And whatever it is, the Constitution, and there's a Congress, and there's a House of Representatives, and there's a whole government. We have a certain system, better or for worse. Okay. And then they, with the seal, with the vote of they made a rule that you need a permit in order to build a toilet. And whatever it is, right there. It's as if the Chumash says that in the state of Illinois, in order to do such and such, you need to have a permit from such and such.
That's what, like the law of the land.
That's exactly what we said before. right? And it can vary, and it can change.
As long as it's within the Sheva mitzvahs.
No, don't say it like that.
No, okay.
No, I'm okay. Actually, you're okay. No, good. No, I'm sorry. I got overzealous. No, my point is like this. You're right.
Not that all of those can't change.
In other words, forget about the other 6.
Okay.
Put those aside.
Okay.
It doesn't infringe on those 6.
Yeah.
It's not any of the 6.
Yeah.
It's something which not to do with those. And they're making a rule. So then this is one of the Sheva mitzvahs b'nei noyach.
Because
it's
over
dinim.
dinim.
Right.
Yeah, right.
So right now, it could change.
As long as it doesn't.
What do you mean? How could it change? It's not,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
it's dinim. So therefore, the rule is follow what the king at the time says. Follow the rules.
You know, is that the civil laws that Rashi spoke about in what we just got done with? When it talked about the 10 that were given at Marah. The 10 that were given at Marah.
Yeah.
Is that what's called civil laws?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. And anyone transgresses that is actually transgressing a word of Torah. It's not just, I don't care what my king says. Excuse me?
That's interesting.
I don't care. I don't like him anyway.
So that's how the Ger Toshav has a din of Yisrael in those 7, probably. Yeah, we learned that from in the Mishpatim, Volume 31. But I've been wondering, I think about that every once in a while, like how can that be? And I'm wondering if it's something to do with that. It's because it's the law of the land. It's 7. It's in there.
But we're saying now that it applies to everybody, anybody. It's dinim for everyone.
Yeah, but what about a non-Jew that lives in the land of Yisrael?
Okay. But just hold that thought for whenever.
Yeah.
After the Torah is commanded, and he's using the same language of Parshas Shoftim, which applies to the Bnei Yisrael. It says that you have the judge of your day, and you have to go by his ruling. We're using the same language with regards to Bnei Noyach and their dinim. You have to go by your judge, by your day, the king of your time. If the succeeding king decides to change 50% of his father's laws, so be it. Doesn't mean that they were bad then. It doesn't mean that they're bad now.
And he might have already said this, but I was still probably playing catch up. Is the proper category to be able to say there are Jewish laws from the Torah that are within dinim for Bnei Noach? How do you bring in those categories? How do you know which ones? Is it just mishpatim in general, and you take out the chukim?
Well, there's 2 very different approaches. There's Rabbi Yitzchak and Rabbi Yochanan.
Yeah,
Right now, we've just finished discussing Rabbi Yochanan. Before, we were all about Rabbi Yitzchak.
Right.
So Rabbi Yochanan is the first opinion, and that approach is, which we just said now, has really got nothing to do with the Jewish laws of Mishpatim or any of that. And there's no point in them learning Choshen Mishpat.
Okay.
And there's no point in having a non-Jewish American judge or lawmaker study. I shouldn't say no point, because they make it a good idea.
I know what you mean.
But it's irrelevant.
It's more arbitrary on that aspect. Right?
But once they make the law,
then it's actual Torah.
It's right. And it can change. Torah eternal, that could change.
Yeah, so it's basically like Talmud Torah for a nation or something like that,
No, that's not Talmud Torah.
Yeah.
It's Mishpatim as they apply for the nation.
That's what I meant by Torah, because proof for Talmud is the part where I think he says you're Mishpatim throughout the generations. Anyways, that's how I'm...
But the other approach of Rabbi Yitzchak is very different. And he says, there's no need to make up anything. Follow every rule that applies to the Jews. We're not talking about how to shake your lulav in esrog.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at. How would he make that distinction?
Very simple. If it's bein adam lachaveroi as opposed to bein adam lamakim, one of the ways we divide for the Jew the category as mitzvahs. There's a few ways. One is positive and negative. One is logical and irrational.
Patim and hukim.
Right.
Okay, that's what I was thinking.
So one of the ways that we divide up and make 2 very clear categories of mitzvahs is bein adam lamakim, between man and God, and bein adam lachaver, between man and man.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So that would mean, according to this, all the laws of the Torah, which is a lot. It's a lot of Torah law. that's between man and man applies to Bnei Noach.
Okay, thank you, Rabbi. That's what you answered my question. Okay, thank you.
So that would be the Rabbi Yitzchak approach. Now, the next piece is titled Dina de Malchusa Dina. The law of the land is law. All right, so this is the fifth piece. Quoting what he quoted earlier, the language of the Gemara, the Dina de Malchusa Dina, law of the government of that particular land is binding Torah law. Ve'olzeh ha'inyan, and to what we were just speaking about until now, which is the Rabbi Yochanan approach, and that is, again, this is the way the Rama understood Rabbi Yochanan. So Rabbi Kasher found this earlier sefer, which actually says the same thing. So it's not the Rama says it. This approach, Nimshach Masha Amru, really follows that which has been stated in the Talmud Gittin 10b. Dina de Malchusa Dina. That is the source for that statement. Ki achar shemitzvas dinin hi keduma, because again, being that the mitzvah of dinim, of having civil laws, is pre-everything. It's way before the revelation at Sinai. It's way before the giving of the Torah. V'yev shelevar prateha, and it's impossible to explain its details. Because things which come up between people, there's no end. There's always new situations that arise. So you need to know how to make laws. There's always new things happening. And the king, who is the ruler in that particular land, Ra'ui hu, he is fit, shekol din sheyigzer, oisei klali bar, that any law that he decrees, in general, in his land, oh, that's what you said, and it doesn't contradict anything from the Torah. Din that his law shall be law, and we will judge accordingly. You can't contradict the Torah. And this is something which you need intellect. You have to use a lot of brain power. Because it is close. It's. I really think that many people made a mistake. And then Rabbi Kasher throws in Dvarav Sham Tzrichim Iyun. His words over there need to be understood. Like he says, I don't really. I question what he's saying over there, but be that as it may, he's quoting him, and that's what he's saying.
So it wouldn't contradict the 6 laws, but it could contradict the mishpatim within the Torah.
That's a good question. Depends how I want to learn what we just read. It's 2:80.
Yeah, right.
Depends how I want to learn it. I don't know.
That's a good question.
And maybe that is, in fact, what Rabbi Kasher is saying that we need to analyze. Maybe that is his Sarich Iyun. Soif Davar, the end word, the final word. Oh, don't get too excited. Just within this part. To sum it up, Lefi ha'inyan hanizkar, according to what we mentioned, hayunasim, what would happen is ktsas hadinim b'mei chachmei Talmud. Some of the dinim, some of these laws in the days of the sages of the Talmud era, would be lefi svara some, according to their intellectual logic, v'mashir elahem shu anhaga tova, what seems to them a proper good conduct bein bnei adam bichlal, between people in general. Mashaloi hoisa raya nimtzes el asvara hi oyel seisra, and they have no proof that that should be the rule, not in favor nor a contradiction to it. For example, it has been stated he quotes 2 places in the Talmud, Shabbos 51b and Yevamis 100b. Kvar hoira zaken. It says that an elder, a sage, has already instructed, has already given a ruling. The Omar and said, Masha asa pi based in asa. What he did, according to the Jewish court, he did. V'zeh kuloi nismach l'mashamar yeshafat hamelech. And this is completely supported by a statement made by King Yeshafat. And he said, V'imachem b'dvar mishpat ein l'dayin l'mashein of royos. And the Gemara makes the famous statement there that the judge can only go by what his eyes see. Meaning, being that he's using his intellect and he's trying hard intellectually to bring out the proper ruling. Hashem maskim imoy, then Hashem agrees with him, even if he, in truth, is wrong, even if he made a mistake. But what he said is law, because all he can go by is what he sees. So even though the fact may be different, and Hashem knows the truth, that's, so to say, irrelevant, because Hashem gave the law to limited mortals that only know so much, and we only can have so much evidence.
That's interesting.
And the Shekhinah, the divine presence, the judges. The Sanhedrin has the Shekhinah there. Does that mean they can't make mistakes? No, it doesn't. As the verse states in Tehillim, Elokim nitzav badas keil, b'kerev Elokim mishpat. Hashem is standing in the congregation of God. Amongst the judges, he will judge. Meaning to say, we have a proper Beis Din, a proper Jewish court. Hashem is there, and as long as they follow the rules that Hashem said to follow, their ruling is law, even if they are quote unquote wrong, they're right. Now, since most civil laws follow logic.
Now, what if you bring something before their eyes and they see it? They follow it.
They go by what they see, exactly.
Interesting.
Now, since most civil laws follow logic, they're not known from the written law, or from the oral law. Therefore, Yeshafat the king had to warn the judges, and tell them, look what you're doing. And then he makes a very, it's probably a famous, it sounds like a very famous quote. Yeshafat, the king says, you're not judging man, you're judging Hashem. When you say so-and-so owes so-and-so money, don't take it lightly, because if you're wrong, do you know who's going to have to reimburse so-and-so? Hashem. You're troubling him. Meaning to say that the proper way to judge between people is to try to go in the ways of Hashem, and you should play the role of Hashem. Hashem is the one who makes the facts, right? The existence, the factual things Hashem does. So if you're a judge, try to play that role. Because all the ways of Hashem are judgment, are just, are proper. As it says, came, and being that it's such, Hashem so Hashem is being judged. He's interpreting all these words of Yehoshaphat, that this is basically what he's saying, that a judge is taking the role of Hashem. Hashem gave us that enormous authority and power.
Is he talking about, I forget, was he talking about the Sanhedrin?
Yeah.
Based in? Okay, I was going to say. Because you couldn't have two based in disagree, then that would be a problem.
Well, it applies to, it doesn't have to be the Sanhedrin, the Supreme Court, the Sanhedrin Gedolah of 71. It could be any Sanhedrin of 23 of any particular city. Whatever they're ruling
23
of each city, so whatever they're ruling for their community, in that case, that's Hashem's word. And for these two things, the sages have stated, okay, so because of these things that he just said, this is why they sum it up. That the judges need to know who they're judging and before whom they're judging. Meaning, don't think you're just judging some human being. And don't think that you're just the authority. You have to remember, Hashem is there. You're judging Hashem, and you're in the presence of Him. And according to that, Moshe would sit there and judge the Jewish people. That's why he says Moshe didn't have to ask Hashem every time, what's the law? What's the law? Moshe, I gave you the law. Now go figure it out. So that's why when people came to Moshe asking him all these halachic questions or all these disputes and all these fights and arguments between the two litigants, Moshe ruled using his intellect based on all the knowledge he knew. But he was never told by Hashem when so-and-so did this claim and this guy says this counterclaim, here's what I want. He used his judgment, his better judgment. And afterwards he chose judges. And if it was something which was simple enough for these judges that were appointed in the system of the hierarchy, then they judged. If they felt that it was out of their ability, then they took it to the higher one. But if it was within their, jurisdiction, as Moshe says in Parshas Yisro, that they shall judge the people all the time. Whatever is difficult, they bring up to Moshe. And whatever is small, they shall judge. And it's actually written in the Torah before the 10 things are written. So this system of judging applies from way back. Okay. We're going to leave it at this point. And as I said, next week, I will not be here. Did I say that? Yeah. I think so. Okay. But before we go off, I want to show you one thing. Pretty much fits with all this that we're saying.
Miluim, is that how we would?
Miluim, yeah, which means supplements. Okay. Provided that we trust that the English translation here is accurate, the Hayom Yom for the 22nd of Shvat, which is very interesting because today was the 25th of Adar, which was the Rebbetzin Chaim Mushka's birthday, and the 22nd of Shvat is her yahrzeit. So the Hayom Yom, the 22nd of Shvat, reads as follows. And I'm going to read the English. I mean, this is a translation of the original Yiddish. Shvat 22. There are two sorts of statutes. A, statutes that create life. And B, statutes created by life. Human laws are created by life, so they vary from land to land according to circumstances. The Almighty's Torah is a godly law that creates life. Hashem's Torah is the Torah of truth, the same in all places, at all times. Torah is eternal.
Makes sense.
I gotta run.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Okay.